The sport of football is an all-in proposition. If 100% competitive commitment isn't there, you won't succeed. And success is what I love so much about our game. There's a physical, mental, and emotional challenge every single day that has allowed me to maximize my highest potential. And I have tried my very best these past 22 years. There are no shortcuts to success on the field or in life. Amen to that. This is difficult for me to write, but here it goes. I'm not going to make that competitive commitment anymore. I have loved my NFL career, and now it is time for me to focus my time and energy on other things that require my attention. I've done a lot of reflecting the past week and have asked myself difficult questions, and I'm so proud of what we have achieved. My teammates, my coaches, fellow competitors, and fans deserve 100% of me, but right now, it's best I leave the field of play to the next generation of dedicated and committed athletes. On that note, we bring in now my friend, NFL reporter Jeff Darlington. Jeff, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Molly. What's going on?
Good to talk to you. And Jeff, obviously, you've been following Tom Brady for a very long time, very closely. Talk to me about this decision and why you think this was officially time for Tom.
Well, I mean, I think there's an amazing component that goes back to when he actually left New England and decided to go somewhere else. And in that adventure, as he would call it, it was a situation where it wasn't necessarily as important to chase championships as it was at this point in his career to chase something new that really would thrill him. And he did that, and he went to Tampa, and in the process, he won a championship. And now I think he also has his eyes on other ventures off the field. This is a person who does not lose the competitive spirit just because he's retiring from football. Yes, his focus, of course, will be on his family, and that was priority number one when making this decision. But he also has other career ambitions, and I think that soon we'll find out some of what those are.
Jeff, listen, appreciate all the great work that you've been doing. And listen, let me ask you this question, man. When we look at Tom Brady, knowing him the way that you do, when he departed New England, was it really about going someplace else just for 2 years? Was it about him playing until he's 45 and then he changed his mind? Was this always the plan? Go win a Super Bowl, do 2 years, and then walk away right now?
I don't think that. One of the things that I think people might be unexpected about Tom is that he doesn't necessarily go into something knowing, when he talked about playing until he was 45, yes, he meant that to a degree, but he's not as non-committal, or he's not as committal as people might expect him to be. He was going into this new chapter, even at that point, with wide open eyes to where it was going to bring him. So I think that all along, he was always step by step. He was basically like, I'm going to go try to win a championship somewhere else, and then we'll see what happens next. And I actually appreciate that mentality going into this adventure, this chapter of his career.
Do you get the impression that he's walked away because he feels he's given all that he's had to give, and this is just the right time? Or is it really, really about Giselle and the kids and the family and the sacrifices they've made all of this years and him feeling he owes it to them to walk away even though he still wants to play?
Both of those things can be true, I believe. This is a person who, look, he's 44 years old. His friends are billionaire businessmen who deal in real estate. It's not 23-year-olds who are hanging out after practice. Like, life is different for him now. And yes, he still has it. He beat Father Time. He could still come back next year and be an MVP favorite. But ultimately, he's 44 years old. At some point as a grown man, it probably gets a little weird to throw on shoulder pads and scream, "Let's go," in an end zone. Life does move on. And just because he can still do this doesn't mean that he has to. And I think that he understands that, and he is as comfortable as anyone walking away from this game. Legacy, by the way, was always important to him, but when he went to Tampa, he was already secure in his legacy. And that when I say that he wasn't chasing championships, it was because he could walk away then and be comfortable with what he had left on the field and on his resume. So the rest of it is gravy. This is house's money that he's playing with at this point.
Jeff, I know you said that he lives in the moment, but what do you think is next for him?
We'll leave that to him.
Okay.
I think he's got a lot of ambitions. He's got a lot of different ventures. I mean, he's got, his Brady apparel line. He's got Shadow Lion production company. He's got all sorts of things going on, but I know that's not it. This guy has so much that he still wants to do at 44 years old, and I don't doubt that he'll be successful in any of it. He'll be great in all of it, I should say.
Jeff, do you have any idea whether he's someone who still wants to stay around the game of football? And, because you got a lot of people that have that itch.
Yeah.
They got that itch, and they still want to stay and remain involved. Is he that kind of guy?
Absolutely. I don't know how it manifests, but at some point, you talk about that with Peyton Manning as well. And I'm not saying from a broadcasting standpoint or anything like that. I'm just saying that Peyton Manning, for instance, still wants to find his way around the game. And I don't know when that happens or how it happens, but I can tell you right now that Tom Brady is someone who, while we understand that he could do pretty much anything. He's got an apparel brand. That's not it, though, for him. I know he loves football and will always love football. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he finds a way back into the game in some capacity.
Jeff, I have 2 more questions for you before I let you roll. First, give us your greatest Tom Brady story.
Oh, my gosh.
That you're allowed to tell.
I don't know. I think that I'm trying to think of a good story, but the one thing that I just feel like with Tom, this isn't anecdotal, but the one most underrated component I'll say about him is the way that he could walk into a locker room and capture the room. I think everybody wants to talk about his lack of athleticism and all those things, and Aaron Rodgers might be a better pure passer, but there is nobody who can walk into a locker room and transcend it the way that he does. He can go into one corner or the other corner. He can go to the offensive lineman or the defensive backfield. He can go anywhere in that room from all walks of life, and he can get those guys to play for him. And I think that probably is the most underrated component of Tom Brady and what made him the greatest of all time.
Okay, and lastly, I've been staring at your window this whole interview, and I can't complain because thanks to Stephen A, I'm out here in LA. But what's the temperature today? Because it looks gorgeous and beautiful. 80s and sunny?
I think we're at a perfect 72 degrees.
Wow.
I think Tom Brady will make his way down to South Florida for the very reason you're seeing behind me, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's on the golf course very, very soon.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.